All right, so today we're diving into a story that's not really about ideas, you know? It's about the people, these strange, fascinating, and frankly, deeply messed up people who live and die for those ideas. And our setting? A quiet little Russian town that's just about to completely explode.
So at the heart of all this chaos is one man, Stepan Trofimovich Verkhovensky. And this quote, it absolutely nails who he is. He's not really a man of ideas. He's a man who loves playing the role of a man of ideas. His whole life, his whole identity, it's just one big performance that he's completely in love with.
And that just begs the question, right? What actually happens when a person's entire life is an act? When that line between who you're pretending to be and who you are just vanishes? What does that do to you? And more importantly, what does it do to everyone around you?
Okay, so before this whole town gets swept up in a storm of chaos, we've got to understand the guy standing in the eye of it, this Stepan Trofimovich. He's supposed to be this intellectual guide, this moral compass for his little circle. But let's just say his compass is, well, it's spinning like crazy.
This is where it gets really good. Look at the difference between the legend he's built up and, well, the actual reality. He sees himself as this persecuted political exile, a martyr for the cause. The truth? The police literally never followed him, not once. He thinks he's a profound scholar? The man published almost nothing. And a literary genius whose work was banned by the censors? Nope. He just got lazy and quit. The guy is a total legend in his own mind.
And if you need any more proof, get this. His one big, dangerous masterpiece was this super weird allegorical play. I'm talking choirs of souls, insects having conversations, a turtle that speaks Latin, and it all ends with the Tower of Babel. The government wasn't scared of him, they were just confused. I mean, who wouldn't be? It was so bizarre it wasn't even threatening.
You know, every performer needs someone to build the stage and pay the bills. And for Stepan, that person was the one and only Varvara Petrovna Stavrogin. She's this incredibly wealthy, powerful widow who for some reason decides to fund his entire life's performance. Without her, none of this happens.
And we're not talking about a short-term gig here. They kept up this strange and noble friendship, as they called it, for 22 years. Think about that. For more than 2 decades, he lived in her house, tutoring her son, and basically being her on-call intellectual.
But let's be real about this so-called friendship. It was deeply weird and codependent. She controlled all his money. They wrote these super dramatic, poetic letters to each other, sometimes every single day, even though they lived in the same house. And beneath all their shared progressive ideals, there was just this deep, simmering resentment. I mean, he would literally punch the walls after they argued. It was a mess.
And Varvara, oh man, she never forgot anything. She had this one line, her ultimate weapon. I will never forgive you for this. And in 22 years, she only used it twice for the most ridiculous things. One time it was because Stepan shouted Yassa, which is kind of like hooray, a little too loud in front of some baron. And she held on to that grudge, simmering on it for 13 years before she brought it up again. Incredible.
So, okay, our performer has his patron. What else does he need? An audience, of course. And he had one. It was this small club of local progressives, these idealists who would just gather around him and hang on his every word as he talked about all the big ideas.
And here's the lineup of his little fan club. You've got Laputin, the town gossip and a proud atheist. Then there's Shatov, an ex-student who's bounced from one extreme belief to another, and now he's just kind of stuck, crushed by a single idea. And finally, Virginsky, a genuinely nice guy who's just a bit, well, half-baked, and whose family is way more radical than he is. This was the perfect echo chamber for all of Stepan's posturing.
All right, so the stage is perfectly set. We've got our lead actor, his producer, his captive audience, all of them just floating around in this little bubble of ideas and petty drama. And then reality comes crashing in. The catalyst for everything that's about to go wrong arrives. Varvara's son and Stepan's old student, the mysterious and very, very dangerous Nicholas Stavrogin.
Nicholas is like a character from a completely different, much darker story. His past is already legendary in this sleepy town. We're talking a wild military career, shocking duels where he actually killed a guy, and getting demoted for his behavior. He doesn't come back as a prodigal son. He comes back as a walking, talking scandal. And he doesn't waste any time. Almost immediately, as the narrator says, the wild beast shows its claws. But here's the key thing you have to understand. This isn't random violence or passion. No, his actions are cold, They're calculated. They're bizarre on purpose. These are public performances of humiliation, aimed not just at one person, but at the entire town's sense of order.
So let's walk through the first one. Picture this. There's this old, respected guy at the local club, Gaganinov, who has this catchphrase he always says, "No, sir, you can't lead me by the nose." So Nicholas hears this. He just calmly walks over, takes the man's nose between his fingers, and literally leads him across the room. Just like that, in front of everybody. The entire room is just stunned into silence.
And that was just the warm-up act. A few days later, he's at a party at Liputin's house, the guy from the circle. He spends some time charming Liputin's young wife. They dance, he makes her laugh, and then bam! Right in front of her husband and all the guests, he grabs her and kisses her. She faints from the shock, and Nicholas, he just puts on his hat, tells the husband, "Don't be angry," and walks out. Unbelievable.
So you can see what's happening, right? These aren't just random jerky moves. He's systematically attacking everything the town holds dear. Respect for elders, the sanctity of marriage, basic honor. And the town reacts exactly how you'd expect. The whole place just unites in absolute outrage against him. But here's the thing that makes it so much more chilling. Nobody, not one person, thinks he's crazy. That would almost be a comfort. Instead, they see his actions as completely intentional. They know it's a deliberate, calculated assault on their society. And that's what makes him so terrifying. It's not madness, it's a strategy. It's psychological warfare.
And as our narrator tells us, all this stuff, the nose pulling, the kiss, this isn't even the main event. This is just the opening act. It's the first few cracks in the ground before a massive earthquake is about to tear the entire town apart.
Which leaves us with one really chilling question, doesn't it? You have Stepan, the teacher, who spent his whole life playing at having ideas, turning them into a safe little performance. And then you have his student, Nicholas, who takes the absence of any real ideas and turns that into a horrifying, real-life performance of chaos. It really makes you wonder, when one generation plays with words and ideas like they're nothing, what kind of monsters will the next generation become to feel something real?